All right, here we go again. The ladies on The View have outdone themselves. Again. I don't even know how many times I've said this, but they've managed to lower the bar and at the same time set a new standard for just how low they're willing to go. It's like some kind of paradoxical talent they've mastered. And honestly, it's impressive in the worst way possible. They just keep sinking further and further, and every time it gets worse. It's almost comical if it weren't so infuriating. And really, it just makes me question the state of the world we live in. I mean, are we serious? This is the kind of garbage dominating TV ratings. These people are making millions of dollars a year. Millions. And they're supposed to be the best the networks can offer. This is the pinnacle of televised discourse. Give me a break. And now, of course, we've got the fallout from the 2024 election, and their response is as predictable as ever. They're sticking to their classic playbook. We're not the problem. You're the problem. Yep, it's not their endless parade of woke nonsense, their disastrous track record on the economy, the border crisis, Afghanistan, you name it. That's to blame. Oh no, let's not forget their little coup against their own president, replacing him with a DEI hire like that was supposed to fix everything. But nah, none of that matters. The real issue, according to them, they couldn't regulate social media. Seriously? They're still banging that disinformation drum, still acting like they're the arbiters of truth. It's honestly laughable. These people are fascist. Yeah, I said it. And I'm not just throwing that out there as some empty buzzword, like they love to do. There's actual evidence to back it up. Let me explain why. But before we dive into the details, let's roll the tape. Another day, another absurd, brain-melting take from the ladies of The View. Let's see what fresh nonsense they've cooked up this time.
Think critically. Well, it would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
It's not going to get any better with Elon Musk now in the administration.
Yep, the quote was exactly as I mentioned before. Kamala Harris could have won if we could regulate social media. Are you kidding me? Doesn't that just say it all? That's the quiet part, being shouted from the rooftops. This one sentence perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with the modern Democratic Party. They are obsessed with control, absolutely addicted to it, and they have a blatant disdain for free speech because they fully embraced censorship as a tool for maintaining power. They're not even hiding it anymore. Think about it. The idea that Kamala Harris, literally one of the least popular politicians in recent history, could have somehow won if only the government had clamped down on social media. It's not just desperate, it's delusional. It's a pathetic excuse for her failure, sure, but more importantly, it exposes their ultimate agenda. Control the narrative by silencing dissent. That's it. That's the whole game. They don't care about misinformation. They don't care about protecting the public. What they care about is shutting down anyone who challenges their worldview or dares to call out their failures. It's the same playbook they use in the corrupt left-wing newsrooms. Now, they just want to apply that Soviet-style editorial control to the entire population. Oh, and don't get me started on Joe Biden's laughable and downright creepy attempt at establishing a disinformation governance board. Yeah, because nothing says freedom like a ministry of truth ripped straight out of 1984. They called it an effort to combat online disinformation. Ooh, spooky buzzwords. But let's be real. It was designed to police speech that didn't align with their narrative. They even hired Nina Jankowicz, the so-called disinformation czar, who turned out to be a partisan hack. This is the same woman who downplayed the Hunter Biden laptop story and spread Russia collusion hoaxes like gospel. The backlash was so bad, they had to scrap the entire thing. But the fact they even proposed it, that should tell you everything you need to know. And what about their so-called fight against misinformation? Most of what they call misinformation is either inconvenient truths or opinions they don't like. Remember how big tech worked hand in hand with the Democrats to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story? Twitter and Facebook went into overdrive to bury it, a legitimate news story, just weeks before the 2020 election. They claimed it was Russian disinformation. But guess what? Fast forward a bit, and multiple sources, including the FBI, confirmed the story was real. Too late, though. The damage was done. They manipulated the flow of information to rig the narrative in their favor. And let's not act like this is a one-off. It's the same story with every issue. Take the 2020 election. Anyone who dared to question it was labeled a conspiracy theorist, deplatformed, or branded an insurrectionist. Meanwhile, these same Democrats spent decades screaming about stolen elections from George W. Bush in 2000 to Trump in 2016. The hypocrisy is off the chart. This isn't about democracy, free speech, or the truth. It's about power, plain and simple. Control the narrative, silence dissent, and crush anyone who dares to call them out. That's their playbook. And they're not even trying to hide it anymore. It's disgusting. It's dangerous. And it's time to wake up.
Russia hacked our election.
The Russians hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russia hacked our election.
Russian hacking of our election.
Hacking of our election.
Russia hacked our elections.
Russia hacked our election.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
Donald Trump is an illegitimate president.
Illegitimate president.
Dems don't accept Trump as a legitimate president.
This wasn't on the level.
This election was not on the level.
I don't think he's a legitimate president.
All right, let's break this down because the hypocrisy is off the charts. Democrats have been denying election results for decades without facing any consequences. Hillary Clinton still claims Trump's 2016 win was illegitimate. Stacey Abrams, to this day, she refuses to admit she lost in Georgia. They've built entire careers off questioning election results. But if you dare to question anything, if you demand transparency, boom, suddenly it's dangerous disinformation. It's not just about censoring dissent. They destroy people for it. Careers ruined, reputations dragged through the mud, and platforms wiped out just because someone challenges the regime. What's really happening here is an unholy alliance between the government and private companies. They don't just want censorship. They want collusion. And then they pretend it's all fine because, oh, it's private companies making decisions on their own. Please, give me a break. Look, maybe there's a debate to be had about what free speech means in the digital age. And sure, some constitutional issues around this are still murky. But that's not what's happening here. What we're seeing is censorship by proxy. Look no further than the Twitter files. It's all laid out. The federal government wasn't sitting on the sidelines. They were pressuring social media companies to censor speech on behalf of one party. That's not private companies regulating their platforms. That's private companies doing the government's dirty work. And that is deeply unconstitutional. And now you've got one of the clowns on The View outright saying it. Just admitting it on national TV. If we could regulate social media, Kamala Harris would have won. Do you realize how insane that sounds? That's not democracy. That's not even close. What they're saying is this: if we could just control what people see and hear, we'd never lose. That's not about winning hearts and minds. It's about rigging the game. It's authoritarianism wrapped in woke buzzwords about compassion and protecting people. Call it what it is: tyranny. The Democrats have no respect for free speech or the marketplace of ideas. None. They don't want to debate you. They don't want to persuade you. They want to silence you. They want big tech in their pocket to shadow ban, deplatform, and outright erase anyone who opposes them. And their goal is always the same: eliminate the opposition and control the narrative. Think about their weaponization of terms like hate speech. It's so vague it could mean anything. Disagree with their woke ideology? Hate speech. Criticize critical race theory? Hate speech. Support border security? You guessed it. Hate speech. They weaponize language to delegitimize and deplatform their opponents while pretending to be champions of democracy. But they're not about democracy. What they're pushing is authoritarianism with a smiley face sticker slapped on it. And here's the thing: the more they scream about misinformation, the more obvious it becomes that they're the ones spreading it. They don't care about protecting the public. They care about controlling you. That's the whole point. The harder they push for censorship, the more they expose themselves as the party of control, not the party of freedom. We don't need a ministry of truth, and we definitely don't need Joy Behar or Whoopi Goldberg lecturing us on what we can and can't say. Let them whine about Kamala Harris and their censorship dreams. The louder they get, the more obvious it becomes. Free speech is the cornerstone of a free society, and their inability to grasp that will be their undoing. So, pay attention, folks. See it for what it is, and don't let them gaslight you into silence.